Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Dill Thursday afternoon. Time to update the Big Ten Power Rankings, an episode that I've been dreading to do pretty much all week. Had Washington, fifth best team in the Big Ten. They lose outright, get smoked by the Iowa Hawkeyes. The Big Ten's been a conference that's been tough for me. Like, you look at the top of the conference and say, we've been pretty good about like Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State. Now, we had Michigan up there. They're certainly not the team we expected. USC's been taking a slide as well. But Dill, this conference has been a wild ride, and I think it's going to continue to be a wild ride through the back half of 2024. So I'm going to take my best stab at stacking these teams. I'm sure we're going to see some adjustments later down the line as well. Now, before we get into it, as always, number one, to the Big Ten fans, it's been a blast talking ball with you guys in the comments section. A lot of y'all don't even agree with some of the takes, but you guys still engage. You guys still talk some ball. So I appreciate it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Much more importantly, let it fly in the comment section. Dill, I'm sure, I'm going to open up the floor for you. What are the problems that you have with these Big Ten power rankings? And then we're going to kind of go team by team and tier by tier here.
So I got two that I definitely don't like. And one is Illinois probably should still be over Nebraska. And I know Illinois has had some bad games thrown into that mix since that Nebraska game, but beating that team on the road in Lincoln, I don't see how necessarily you're going to put Nebraska over them now because Nebraska's had their snafus as well. So again, two teams that are certainly not in that big dog category yet, not really close to those Penn State, Oregon, Ohio States. But they're both really good programs. I just think Illinois probably should deserve the nod because they did win the head-to-head. And then the other one is Michigan. I don't see a world that they're in that dark horse category until they prove to the world that their quarterback play is not totally inept.
So let me ask you a question, though. Like, is Michigan closer to USC, Indiana, Illinois, Nebraska? Or are they closer to Iowa? Like, I mean, I guess you could say they're pretty dang close to what Iowa's playing like right now, but one, I did like what I saw from Jack Tuttle. There might be a little bit of Michigan bias thrown in there, but like at the end of the day, I look at the roster and say there are still dudes on this roster. Like last time I checked, Mason Graham, Josiah Stewart, Kenny Graham, Will Johnson, all still on this Michigan team. So I still think there's some upside that Michigan can tap into.
But fundamentally, the quarterback play is not close, and the offensive line is playing poorly. That's probably the bigger issue. Like, what separates them from Iowa? Iowa can run the ball. Like, their offensive line's actually playing really, really well. Michigan, quarterback's been god-awful. Everyone knows that. But if you look deeper under the hood, the offensive line's not playing winning football either. So when you got that kind of situation going on and you don't really have a ton of skill guys, you never really had a ton of skill guys at Michigan, it feels like, in a while, it's really, really hard to win games. I think you're seeing that. I really do think they shouldn't be in that category with some of those other teams that I think have shown some things that at least at times when they're really on can play their best and challenge those top contenders.
You know what? I'll say this. If Michigan can't get it done against Illinois this weekend, I'll drop them. Yeah, I feel like I've been hanging on. And it's getting harder and harder to hang on.
That Tuttle fumble, it broke me.
Yeah, I feel like the fingers of Michigan hanging on to this dark horse category contender, it's slipping away pretty quickly. Now let's go back to the top then, since you've aired out your complaints, and I'm sure you're going to have some more as we kind of get through this. Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State. Oregon obviously deserves to be number one. Ohio State coming over Penn State. Do you agree or disagree there?
I probably agree, but I almost want to have, like, I don't think that gap is as wide as people think. I would think, honestly, a lot of national media people right now feel like they think that, frankly, Penn State should be in that dark horse category and Oregon, Ohio State can be in their own league, if you will. I don't agree with that at all because, frankly, you look, I feel like people don't appreciate how close Penn State's been to beating Ohio State and Michigan both times in that 2023 and 2022 years. I mean, they're right on the doorstep. And if they don't play offense that makes you like want to saw your own arm off at times, I think they can be really dangerous. And you're seeing them do that right now. They're attacking matchups better. They're being much more explosive. And their offensive line, for as many guys as they had to replace from last year, is playing exceptionally well. And their defense is still great. So I think Penn State's really, really close to, frankly, both of them.
100%. I think it'd be wild if somebody wanted to put Penn State like a tier below Oregon and Ohio State. Because this like you kind of said it best. Like, what's been the biggest differentiator between Penn State and like that top tier of the Big Ten? It's been on the offensive side of the football. Not only is Coach Cold Nicky just rejuvenated this offense, but Drew looks awesome at the quarterback position. And you have some difference makers, not only at the running backs, but Tyler Warren catching footballs. You want to see the wide receiver room continue to get better, but at least you have some difference makers as pass catchers.
And they
Going
still
to
need to prove it. Their offense needs to prove it against good defense because that's always been the issue. They scored a little bit on those lesser teams, if you will, last year. You still want to see it, but I think there are many more green shoots that you can kind of believe in right now.
Yeah, 100%. Like the eyeball test is telling us like this Penn State offense is actually pretty damn good this year. Nebraska over Illinois. That's fair. Now, the reason I'm gonna kind of go out and try to defend it is I think Nebraska had a lot of opportunity, and I'm not saying like Illinois didn't deserve to win that football game, but I think there were a lot of realities where Nebraska wins there. I think that's a toss-up game, and I do think that I'm gonna bet on the team with the true freshman quarterback to continue to develop and get better as the season goes on. So I lean Nebraska. Quite frankly, I don't feel necessarily great about it. And I was watching that Illinois Purdue game, and what I saw from the Illinois defense, that kind of reminded me from what I saw from Illinois' defense in 2023. So it made me a little bit concerned. I kind of see where you're coming from. Dill, Indiana's the kicker. Like I had Indiana actually all over the place as I was changing this. The end of the day, we don't know what Indiana is. Like you look at their wins in the Big Ten, they played a weak non-conference schedule. Their wins are Northwestern, UCLA, and Maryland. All teams are which are in the bottom tier of the Big Ten. They've looked really good doing it, but how good is this team? We're gonna find out Saturday as they play Nebraska. But as of right now, like I'd rather lean with teams like Nebraska and Illinois, and quite frankly, USC in terms of like I know what they are. We're going to get to USC, but I want to hear your takes on Indiana there.
The take is kind of what yours is. Like, I have no idea what to make of it. I wouldn't have thought they'd win like 3 games if I looked at that roster from just a pure talent perspective coming in. But Signetti, I mean, he knows how to coach offense. That's undeniable. I think he's got York playing really, really comfortable. He looks like decisive. The ball's getting out. They're not taking a ton of sacks. I think their defense, they make some plays. Like, I don't know that it's wildly talented, but they make some plays. I think they have some guys who get after the passer at a pretty decent level and can do some things. But again, I'm with you. It's like I think a lot of teams have, quote, talent that could make Northwestern or Maryland look bad because those teams are really, really bad.
So let's go to USC. And I actually had USC much higher than this, and I dropped them for a couple of different reasons. And I think most importantly, look, USC's 3 losses were all games they were leading in the fourth quarter of. What I'm concerned with USC is the attrition, right? Eric Gentry's now out for the season. He was by far like this defense without Eric Gentry looks so much different than with a healthy Eric Gentry. Now Anthony Lucas has gone down. Like you're going to have to rely on just a lot of young and unproven. I think this USC team's going in the right direction. I got up here yesterday and kind of defended Lincoln Riley and say, like, I think Lincoln Riley's got this thing going in the right direction. We said this going into 2024, like the biggest concern for USC is depth. And now that through like it's football, like you're going to lose some guys, whether it's for the season, whether it's for a couple of weeks, but as you go into the month of October, November, I'm just a little bit concerned about this USC team holding up from a depth standpoint, but make no mistake about it. Like we've seen this USC team beat a top 10 LSU team that just beat Ole Miss.
USC's A ball, I still think, is probably better than all 3 of those teams that are above them until you get to Penn State. And obviously, they play their best. I think they beat all 3 of them. So there is like that element, but also like, are they playing consistent? And I do think like they don't necessarily have the pipeline in place yet to backfill some of the injuries they've taken, and especially on the defense side and the front 7.
Yeah, I think this team's going in the right direction, but it's hard to see them playing their best football late in the season with some of the injuries that you're kind of seeing take place. Michigan, we talked about them. It really comes down to like, does Jack Tuttle make this Michigan offense have some life? If it does,
we thought we had something for half a quarter.
And I'm not like ready to like completely like look. I know Jack Tuttle's probably not going to be the quarterback that leads Michigan to a Big Ten championship. Like I'm fully comfortable admitting that. There is an element where it's like, all right, Jack Tuttle hadn't even practiced with the team up until that week. Like he was nursing an injury. You could tell he was a little bit rusty. If he can just give solid Big Ten quarterback play for Michigan, I do think they can be a team that's kind of in this category in the Big Ten. We'll see. We'll get our answer against Illinois. Getting to the next tier, Dill, Iowa. Look, they proved me wrong against Washington. Like, I was all over Washington to take down Iowa on the road. When they have a difference maker on offense, and again, I don't think the defense is as elite as we've seen in the past, but they can run the football again, and that was kind of like an unspoken storyline for Iowa the last couple of years. Like, what has changed? Like, now all of a sudden, why are people talking about the Iowa offense? It's because they have struggled to run the football. They got a legitimate difference maker running back, arguably one of the best backs in the Big Ten and in the country, an offensive line that's running that outside zone really, really well. Like,
Their
you kind of
ceiling's
got,
just too low. I mean, at the end of the
yes.
day, when you have Cade McNamara playing quarterback, similar problem that Michigan's obviously having, you just don't have a guy who's going to win you a game against a Penn State or an Ohio State. You saw that. It's like, it doesn't matter how good anyone around him plays. He isn't good enough to make things happen to beat those top dogs. And you look, I mean, the way like guys like Dylan Raiola are playing or Altmaier, like those guys are, in fairness, playing good enough where if everything's kind of going right around them, I think they can give those top dogs a shot. I just don't think Iowa, until they figure out a quarterback that's not Cade McNamara, they can't put themselves in positions to ever win those games. I don't feel like.
Yep.
You even saw that
Wisconsin.
against Michigan last year. Like when they, I mean, everything was going wrong for Michigan. Nothing was like their quarterback play's just not been good enough, and
Yeah,
I don't think that's changed.
100%. Can't argue with that. Wisconsin statement win against Rutgers. Like, I Luke Fick, I'm really interested to see how Wisconsin finishes the back half of 2024.
Yeah.
Washington, I think definitely got a little bit exposed in terms of the trenches. Like, and that's what's concerning the most for a Michigan fan is like Iowa was able to play bully ball against Washington when Michigan kind of struggled to play that bully ball. Um, I think kind of with the conversation we had with USC, like I think a ball for Washington's actually pretty dang good because I think Will Rogers is very solid. Like, not many quarterbacks in the Big Ten right now that I trust more than Will Rogers. But you kind of saw the questions we had for Washington heading into 2024, line of scrimmage in the Big Ten, kind of reared its ugly head. Minnesota Rutgers to finish it out. And then Dill, the bottom tier, Michigan State, Northwestern, UCLA, Purdue, and Maryland. Like, plug your nose. I think Coach Locke is gone after this year because you look at Maryland, and the whole storyline was Maryland's finally out of the Big Ten East, and they're going to be able to win a little bit more football games. And they just look so bad, especially in the Big Ten. The caveat team here, Dill, I look at Northwestern and say I just think they're capped a little bit. Now, I like what you've seen from the quarterback change for Northwestern. I would also say the same thing for Purdue, but I haven't seen enough sustained success for me to really buy stock yet. Michigan State's the one. Like, Michigan State could work their way to that outside looking in tier. Yeah, but I can't put them up right now because, again, Aiden Childs is playing some freshman football out there. But
Is that?
if
But it's like
he
when we talk with Arkansas, he's putting them in positions to be competitive in football games because he makes high-level plays at times. And again, he needs to cut down on the unforced errors because he's making a ton of those. But I do feel like there is a path for them to being competitive. I don't look again, is Iowa ever going to be particularly competitive at a high level? Not until they figure out that quarterback spot. Can Michigan State, if they stop making mistakes, be competitive with a team like Michigan or USC, Illinois? Like, yeah, they definitely can be competitive. Again, like he's making a lot of mistakes, but he has shown some real bright spots, I'd say, both athletically and just getting the ball down the field. And Nick Marsh is kind of a hammer too. So
Aiden Childs is one of the higher upside quarterbacks that we see in this conference, and I fully believe that. It's just been too much of bad football from Aiden Childs for me to put them into that outside looking in category. Which, again, kind of like I said with Nebraska, like young quarterback, maybe that changes as the season goes on. But right now, you kind of got to stick them there. We'll cut it there. I'm sure these rankings are just going to get embarrassed again on Saturday. So we'll check in back Thursday, update the rankings. Y'all can laugh at me in the comment section. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.